You're listening to Drinks and a Movie with your host, Rudy. Spoiler alert.
Yes. Tremors.
I love that movie.
I love it too. I just think it's one of the most perfect films we've done, honestly.
So fun. That movie scared me too when I was younger. And I remember I was like, I'm not going to the beach. I'm not going to the beach. Yeah. Well, just because of sand. I'm like, the concrete, I'll be protected. The house, I'm protected.
See, you listened.
Yeah.
Because they make a point. It sticks to the Pleistocene alluvials. The what? The sand.
The sand.
I just get bummed when Victor Wong gets it.
Oh, yeah.
He's a national treasure.
Yeah, he was a good guy.
I know. He didn't deserve that.
Yeah.
We had to break his leg viciously, too. Do you remember that? We had a fake leg.
Because it just...
Yeah.
Does it? I just remember it like comes up.
Yeah, it grabs him first. The tentacles hook him, right? Like grappling hooks, and he goes...
Yeah.
By the Coke machine.
Yeah.
He's pushing the Coke machine, which is rattling.
Yeah.
And then the thing crashes, or it's crashed up.
It goes
already.
like up through the floorboards.
It goes up through the floor. It grabs him first and then pulls a stuntman into it.
Okay.
And a trooper, because we had like a body plate in the worm. It was like a big teeter-totter. Uh-huh. With guys doing this with a counterweight. So it was really like old school.
Yeah.
And he was sitting in it, going, oh, and we put this fake leg, like it's his own leg, like so it's a really messy,
Yeah.
Like, ooh. But that was fun. But Tremors was great like that because those filmmakers, Brent Maddock and Steve Wilson are the writers, and Ron Underwood's the director. And Ron was a first-time director. He had done a lot of shorts and stuff like that. And the two writers had done a whole bunch of stuff like Batteries Not Included and Land Before Time and what's the one? Short Circuit, So they were like a big Amblin like success powerhouse writing team. And they had written this thing some years prior, and they wanted their friend from USC Film School, Ron Underwood, to direct it, and they just stuck to their guns. Oh, yeah. And he did a fantastic job on it. But they were very practical minded. They just loved the ingeniousness of the real stuff. And it was also pre-digital. Mm-hmm. So we were able to just basically take the formula that, again, from Aliens, that worked so well, which was full scale doing a certain amount and miniatures doing a certain amount. And Gail Ann Hurd produced Tremors. And she also produced Alien.
I don't think I ever caught that.
Yeah.
That she produced Tremors.
Yeah. So it was not a big, hard conversation to say, Gail, we got to do what we just did 2 years ago, and or whatever it was. And she said, great. And we recommended that she hire the Skotak brothers, who were miniature effects geniuses, tabletop miniature geniuses that I met on my first jobs at Roger Corman back in the early 80s. And I learned they were my visual effects mentors. I just learned so much from those guys because they could make something out of nothing. They could take a trash can and turn it into the interior of a spaceship hallway and stuff, Yeah. And so they did the miniature effects photography on Tremors. And they built the miniature sets and all that. So Tom Woodruff and I, who formed, Tremors was our first job as Amalgamated Dynamics Incorporated, first feature job. And so kind of right out of the gate of forming the company-ish, we were unemployed for 7 months, but whatever. But first feature was with Gail Hurd again, and then, a classic, even if it's a cult classic.
It definitely.
But it spawned a lot of sequels.
Yeah. Are you involved in any of those?
I was involved in 1 through 3.
Okay.
And then in number 4, my friends Howard Berger and Greg Nicotero from K&B did the effects for that, and we shipped them all the molds and make the work. Because we really, we you guys should not. We're not going to don't resculpt it. Keep the continuity going. And then after that, they went into digital world.
When they have the ones on that.
Yes. Yeah. And they, sorry, on 3, we had the 2-legged guys. There's
but they were you guys,
my drawings are right up there. You see, that'll cut in nicely for the B-roll. Right there, that part. And then we had the ass blasters right behind Tweety. Right. Can you see Tweety? That's the ass blaster from number 3. But once they went digital, they started like changing the
look,
the look of the worms. They actually had digital worms in number 3, which somehow were like, man, you guys like complained that these things were too phallic when I designed it.
Excuse me.
What the heck is that?
Yeah.
So, not to be critical, because it's I really like 1, 2, and 3. I really like, and 4 is very clever because it goes back to the foundations of the founding of perfection.
And it's still Michael Grossman.
Michael
right?
Gross,
playing like the
he's
ancestor.
Great. He's great. And that's all that whole series is also a testament to his watchability and his skill as a leading actor. He's so fun.
Yeah, it's funny that he became the guy for all those. I did watch a couple of the new ones, that are CGI. I was curious, and I'm like, yeah, man, he's still at it. Still, Burt Gummer.
He's great. He's great, and he's so enthusiastic. He's going, I'm not able to make it, but there's a Tremors Fest in Santa Fe. And I thought I was going to go make, but I can't. And he's from Santa Fe.
Okay.
Right? I think he's from Santa Fe. But the host of the Tremors Fest is George R.R. Martin from Game of Thrones. The writer of Game of Thrones is a huge Tremors fan.
Oh my gosh.
So he puts on this Tremors Fest. They're coming up on the 2nd year, and I'm like,
that's why I wrote those books, because I need money to make this.
My lifelong dream of Tremor.
His editor on the Game of Thrones book was like, why is there a giant worm in this? You can't have a guy named Burt Gummer, a character named Burt Gummer. But isn't that interesting?
That's amazing.
That's the reach of this franchise.
Yeah.
It is really, truly amazing.
Do you take into consideration, I guess, like when you, I guess, know or think that a monster creature you're creating is going to be shot in like dark versus something like Tremors where it's like, all right, it's all like daytime, desert, like we're going to see this thing. Yeah. Do you approach it all the same way, or do you go in, like, I guess in pre-production knowing, hey, this is going to be in the dark a little bit? So
generally we try to make our work so that it can hold up under any lighting condition. However, there are things like, texture and paint scheme and shine and stuff like that. Yeah. Because nighttime, you get specular highlights, which are single source lights that generally kind of rake off the thing, as opposed to, broad daylight. We're shooting this scene at noon. Okay, worst possible light.
Yeah.
So our goal in Tremors was just to create a creature that looks like it could exist, because that's what the characters all sit around and hypothesize.
Right.
Where'd this thing come from? Which is an interesting backstory on that. Was we had a early on in the production, the writers had us for a moment say, we want you guys to weigh in. You've all read the script. They didn't explain what the creature's origins were at all.
Okay.
Do you care? And I personally was passionate about not having it in it, because what are the possible explanations? There's only a handful of possible explanations, and we've heard them all. So whatever. There's Godzilla. There's radiation. There's alien. There's prehistoric. It's basically it, right?
Yeah.
Or so what they said was, okay, we're getting pressure from the studio to pinpoint. They want to show a crash spaceship with eggs. And we're like, no, don't.
Yeah, this
movie happens in like a 24-hour period or so. Like, no, we should only know what the characters know. So their solution, which I thought was brilliant, was to have everybody like sitting around on a rock going, where do you think they're from?
Yeah.
And everybody's got a different idea. All of them are valid.
Yeah.
So you've covered all the points. Pick your one, studio.
Yeah.
And that cast really holds it down too. They all are just Fred Ward, Kevin Bacon, Miguel, Victor White. It's like this interesting group of characters.
Yeah.
You completely buy all these different ideas.
It's
they're all coming from a different place. How can we exploit this thing for money?
Right,
Yeah.
Taking the pictures.
I'll give you $5 for it. Yeah. And then he's like, they're taking the pictures and they're drinking, going, we should have held out for 20. They're still small thinkers.
Yeah.
I love that they just never really quite get to the high level thinking. But what was I saying? Mezcal is what I was saying.
Yeah.
I don't know what I was saying. Let me take a break.
That made me think a little bit of like the first Predator movie. Like, because you're talking about how in this, like, the studio wants to come up with an answer for it. And I always think, like, all right, Predator, the first one, it's interesting that they show the ship in the very beginning. I'm like, what if you just cut out that 10 seconds?
Yeah.
Because you're going in like, all right, an Arnold action movie. You know, Carl, we got all these guys, just Jesse Ventura. It's going to be this war crazy killer movie. Then you would be so surprised that it's this extraterrestrial monster, but they kind of give it away in the beginning. I imagine that was probably a similar studio.
It comes out of test screenings, those kinds of things come out of test screenings. We need clarification. We need to, you know.
Yeah.
And did they need it? At the time, I remember thinking, oh, that's cool. They're really very little information on that backstory.
Yeah.
It's just like perfunctory, like, and the alien ship crashes. We've all seen this before.
Right.
Yeah.
So let's move on to the fun. Which I appreciated. But it is kind of like tacked on, like, how dopey do you have to be?
Yeah. It'd be cool if you didn't know at all. Until it comes out and you're like, oh.
Well, you know, there's a movie, an English movie. I think it's called 20 Million Years to Earth, or 2 million years, 20,000.
Is it 20,000 fathoms?
No, there's 20,000 fathoms. There's 20 million miles to Earth, which is a Ray Harryhausen movie. And this one is, oh, God, get out the phones. Anyway, it's a, this is an interesting way to do a podcast.
Yeah.
I know.
There's a what are the Quatermass? It's a Quatermass movie from the British films, right? And there's another one that my dad said, you got to watch this. Get up. I was like, it'd be like, it's 9 o'clock. Over my mother's objections. He needs his sleep. He's a growing boy, you know. And so half awake, I would look at this, and this was one that he showed me, and it starts off as a haunted house movie.
Okay.
There's ghosts in this haunted house, right? Spirits and things are happening. It's weird, right? And then you come to learn that they've discovered an unexploded German V2 rocket as they're building the subways. And this is beneath this house. Somehow this rocket got lodged underneath the house, and they've discovered it. And they're like, you have to move out of the house because you're going to blow up. If it explodes, this house is destroyed, etc. So they get the people out of there, but it's not a V2 rocket. It's a spaceship. They've discovered a spaceship. And the ghosts are the ghosts of alien creatures that were either built the spaceship or were being transported by I think they're the aliens that built the spaceship. They're the psychic projections of these creatures. So it's like layer by layer. You go, what the fuck?
Right? It keeps going.
And then when you go into the spaceship, you discover that these are the aliens that tampered with apes and created human beings.
These are creators.
And this is like a movie from 1966 that was based on a novel from 1952 that was like, you know, so all this stuff, none of it's new. You know?
Right.
Yeah.
Anyway, when you talk about unveiling the layers of like, how little do you need to know to stay engaged? And that's the thing is I think when a studio loses confidence that the material is engaging enough, they start putting in really signposts and directed stuff and like, just let us figure it out, you know, if it's a compelling movie.
Yeah. And what are some of the, I guess, like classic movies that really influenced you or that you saw that you were like, I need to do this? And also, I guess, your contemporaries now, like, is there anything you're seeing now that is like, oh, that's awesome. I want to, take that to another level? Or
different periods in my life, I think about this. Like people say, what's the movie? And I used to just sort of offhandedly go, oh, well, it's the original Planet of the Apes because that is a movie. Again, I don't want to make my mom sound like a bad mother, but she did drop me and my brother off repeatedly at the movie theater that summer that Planet of the Apes was
That sounds like a cool mom.
I know. Like Disney, the movie theater all day.
I'm so lucky. And Brooksy. And so we would get dropped off and we would watch the first showing and then we'd hide under the seats and watch the second. And we just watched it all summer long. As a kid would now if you had a DVD or if you could just pull it up on Netflix or something, right? And you know all the lines, you start seeing all the flaws, right? And it just embeds in your brain. And I love that movie very much. But prior to that, I have to recognize the movies that my father let me watch, like Hush, Hush, Sweet Charlotte. It's a Betty Davis movie. But it's not the super crazy ones with like her, like Baby Jane, whatever happened to Baby Jane.
Okay, yeah.
Hush Hush Sweet Charlotte is a little more straightforward, but it's a creepy fucking brain melt if you're a little, a 7-year-old in Anaheim, California in the 60s. But there's one called Black Sabbath, which I feel like was a famous guy, like maybe not Dario.
Mario Bava.
Mario Bava,
yeah.
Mario Bava. And that one freaked me out. And then the Harryhausen movies, which were more accessible to a child's mind. They were less like dangerous, but technically exhilarating and so fun. So I always feel like, and then later, in my teen years, it was other like, getting into sci-fi movies and, Slaughterhouse 5 and 2001 and, Silent Running and, hardcore sci-fi stuff. But I just sort of always, I just thought I have to do that. I have to, whatever is being done here on whatever level, I have to be involved in that because I love this feeling so much. Mm-hmm. And that's what I'm always like, my nose has gotten itchy. Is that the mezcal? Maybe I should switch to one of the others.
Yeah.
Just to alleviate the itchy nose. And I guess it's allergies, right? What was it I would say? That I want to give that feeling.
Yeah.
I want to and it's really like heartwarming because I think it wasn't until about 2011 or so that I felt like my work was really connecting with people, or the people knew who I was or what my work was, And it was the Thing 2011 that shifted that because our work was replaced, mostly, not all. And our design stayed, but it became digital.
So I do vaguely remember reading about that. Like I remember I saw that movie on my birthday when it came out 2011, which I think it was that same day. I was like, this 4? Is... No, I wasn't I don't know how old it was. 10 years ago. I'm 34 right now.
Okay.
Yeah.
10 years
24, ago. 13 years ago? Whatever.
Yeah, whatever.
Over 18. You're old enough to watch it.
But, and I'm a huge fan of the original. I think it's a masterpiece. It's crazy that Carpenter.
You mean the Carpenter one?
Yeah,
not the.
Not Howard Hawks.
Right.
Yeah, thanks for catching
that. That guy sucks.
But no, I remember watching it and reading that it was replaced, but I never found like too much information on it. So I would love to hear more about that because I do like that 2011 one, but it just doesn't hit the same way because of that.
Well, there's no way for
there's
no way. Carpenter's version is just amazing. Mm-hmm. Carpenter's version is so sublime and so mysterious and like that's not one that really goes out of its way to give you signposts and guardrails to find your way.
You know just as much as they know, and you discover it as they're discovering it.
And you're left with questions afterwards, which is like the very core of mystery and what is the thing and what is its actual form and and it's I don't know, it's got to be his best film, isn't it?
I think it is.
Yes.
Yeah.
I mean, we all love Halloween, but
right.
The thing.
But like if you think about like his other movies, well, like Halloween, right? Like to go from the definitive slasher, which is a force of nature chasing a person, right? Mm-hmm. And then you go to The Thing. The Thing is so much more levels and nuances and. Which means he was capable of it when he did Halloween, which is probably why Halloween is so, long-lasting.
Yeah.
But in the Thing 2011, it was I think, I encourage people to watch it because it's, people kind of feel worse for us than we feel about the work being replaced. Because you go into it knowing that it's always a possibility, right? Especially around that time in history, when there was maybe less understanding at the studio level of the nuances and that people really want in a horror movie, a body horror movie. You got to have the real thing. You have to have real materials and real objects and all that stuff. And none of this is at the feet of the director, because the director was meticulously dedicated to everything that Carpenter did. Mm-hmm. And you can see it in the details of the set, like the little intercom boxes are the exact same intercom boxes that were done in the 83, 84, 83? 82.
82, yeah.
82 version. And he was very into the work of Rob Bottin, our director was, Matthias von Heininger. Great. I think he's a great director. And he wanted that tactile quality, and he understood that, this was a creature that was hiding.
Yeah.
Right, until it couldn't anymore. That said, I have never had like an official explanation as to why so much of our work was replaced, other than like reading some quotes and stuff from people, and the feeling. What I gather from what I've read is that at the studio level, they felt that the work was a little bit understated or a little bit calm, a little bit a little bit old-fashioned, right? And I think the fans would go, yeah, and right, like
they would have loved it.
It should have been a throwback. It should have been in the style of what. But you have to remember that, like, we had a puppet Yoda for movies, a bunch of movies, and then they did a digital Yoda. Right. And then they went back to a puppet Yoda. And they tried to make the digital Yoda look like a puppet Yoda.
Yeah.
And then you got baby Yoda now, who's a puppet.
Exactly.
And there's nuances to the way audiences feel about things that studio executives are totally unaware of. Like, you can have young people who play video games, and that aesthetic is perfectly appropriate and right for that medium. If you put that aesthetic into a feature film, those same fans of video games object because it doesn't look real enough. It's a different medium. You need something else. And studio executives don't understand it, to the point where I once had a producer say to me, we've decided to go with a digital creature because video games are a much bigger market share than even features. And we want to get that dynamic into this movie.
Oh my
God. That person was saying, this makes a lot of money, and so that it's got to be good. So we're going to plug that into the movie. And I said, well, you have to be aware. I think I might know more of what the fans are saying because I'm reading this stuff. And I pointed out where I thought that was a flawed idea, and they were like, okay, thank you. Similar conversation I had when we brought some studio executives through the studio to look at the work on the thing, 2011. And some of my people were like, we're getting a lot of inquiries. People are emailing us, right? Like, and so we posted the emails and highlighted key phrases that said, don't use CGI. Please don't fuck this up with CGI.
That's
all
why
that stuff.
I didn't watch it.
And I did my diligence. And when the execs came in, I said, here are some feedback of people, and I'm like,
people buying the tickets.
Exactly.
These are the fans, and I'm like, so they're saying like, look, this is a very balanced one that says, feel free to use it for matte paintings and rip removal and all that stuff. Do all that. Just don't let the creatures be digital. Yeah. And the response from the person in charge was, yeah, right, and they just kept walking. Crazy. So that was in 2010 or 2010. But it has shifted now. I think studios are much more aware of it now. And the reason they're aware of it is because it's a great sales tool. It's not that at the executive level they're not that concerned with how they get there, but they go like, oh, fans seem to really respond to BTS footage of actual things, puppets, makeups, all that. So let's make sure we have that, right? And they're,
Yeah, it is funny. You're right. I never really thought about that. How now it's very much a marketing thing where you'll see like the new Alien Romulus, they're doing and that's like the headline, back to practical effects, or the new Star Wars stuff. They're doing practical and all of that. Like Terrifier 3, we're gonna see practical.
Oh my god!
That's funny. I didn't even because I read all that because I'm one of those fans. So I'm just like, oh yeah, I eat that up. But yeah, from their perspective,
right?
It's like, oh yeah, here's the cookie. Everyone
they have a valid reason. Because I had to get to the bottom of this because like I literally was like a studio exec once, somewhere. Yeah, again, everything seems like it's 2010 to me. said, I got to tell you, I'm going to be honest with you. I can never recommend to a studio to ever use any practical animatronics. Can't do it. And I said, can you please explain that to me? Like, from what led you to this? Mm-hmm. And he said, well, I don't want to pay for it twice. I said, what do you mean by that? He said, inevitably when we make a movie, we shoot the movie and it's full of practical stuff. And then at some point, the director changes their mind and we find ourselves reshooting or digitally removing that thing and replacing it with a... And I said, they changed their mind. What do you mean they changed their mind? Well, we do test screenings and we get response cards and we have committed to this work up front, which now we all realize is not working. And it's not necessarily working because it doesn't function properly, or doesn't move cool or look cool. It's that the audience is confused as to why that thing looks like this. So we just have to reshoot our last act of the movie anyway, so why not just shoot plates that we can insert a digital thing afterwards and not invest in your techniques up front? And I go, okay. So in my mind, I go, it's not personal.
It's not me.
Right.
It's not personal. Okay, I get you. So my further analysis of it is the reason why it worked at one point, John Carpenter's The Thing, all that stuff, is that those movies had longer pre-production times. So they had somewhere in the history of my career, studios stopped investing in 9-month pre-production times and started truncating it to where we have 3-month pre-production times now. I'm lucky to ever get more than 3 months to build anything. Rob Bottin had a year to do all of the effects on The Thing, right? Rick Baker had a year to build the character Harry from Harry and the Hendersons. Mm-hmm. We had 9 months on Aliens. We had maybe we had about 10. We were in London for 10 months on Alien 3, but that's because there was a screw up with the script and they shut us down for a couple of months. But they were giving us time. They were giving us six good months to build everything. And in that time, it's not just the build for us. It's script revisions. It's discussing it. So directors are, in order to save money in the short run, directors are shooting movies that aren't ready to shoot. And then they put it all together and they show it and they get the response cards and they go, okay, now we'll fix it. And they consider that, I think, a better cost investment than taking the time up front. Because when they start borrowing money on their line of credit,
right,
a studio, big studios, they start spending a shit ton of money on interest. Mm-hmm. And they don't want to do that. So that's why it's hard for me to I need my money up front so I can have it on the day. It's hard for me. It's always a bit of a struggle. They don't want to cut the checks because they don't want to unleash that fund, right? But they have to with me, so they're sort of grudgingly, right?
Yeah, because, I mean, they got to give you some bit of the budget ahead of time because you have to get the materials. Do
everything, yeah.
I got to build everything. All of my work happens in pre-production.
Yeah.
So I can spend a shit ton of money, still less than digital. My techniques are less costly than digital.
I was going to ask that. I mean, yeah, it seems like I mean, if the CGI or digital, I guess, versus practical effects, if it really even is that much cheaper at the end of the day, or if it just kind of balances.
Well, it's a little bit of it's a little bit of apples to oranges sometimes. Mm-hmm. But I usually say, like, we've done research with line producers, right? To say, like, because they want to know. They're like, well, I don't know which way we should go.
Yeah.
What's the best money option? Because they got to ride that budget, right? I'm like, well, I'll give you all the information. So we say, like, here's how much it costs to build the stuff. Here's how many puppeteers at these rates. And then they, on their side, line producer side, factor in, well, hotel, accommodation, all those other factors, right? And that's a costly thing. SAG puppeteers aren't cheap, right? So then they go like we did this on one of the Santa Claus movies. Do we build a hydraulic animatronic reindeer for Tim Allen to ride on a boom arm, right? And they said what they came back with was, if we can do 3 shots a day with your techniques, we're beating the cost of digital. And I said, 3 shots? That sounds freaking easy to me, right? Like we should be getting 6 or more.
Yeah.
And then they said, okay, great. Then in that case, they're going to invest in a big cyclorama. He's supposed to be flying through the sky, right? Where we can get shots where he's against a cloudy cyc and we blow, fake clouds past him, and we frame out the big boom arm that comes out of the side of the animal, right? And you get a ton of shots. Yeah. And then sometimes you can do just a digital removal on that. So digital cost, but still you get all the animation, all that stuff. So then that enabled them to do their wides of the whole, sleigh flying to the sky digitally. But when he starts leaping from reindeer to reindeer, that's us. When he's riding on the guy in close-up, that's us. And that's kind of the classic split that Jurassic Park established, which is like we'll do the wides and the athletic stuff with the digital, and then we'll do the close-up detail stuff, tactile stuff with the practicals. So my job now is kind of like I want to get them out of digital shots with our practical stuff, which to them is a win-win because it saves them money, and it's a win in my opinion for the audience because it keeps things rooted to reality. Like there's a thing that happens, and again, it's nothing personal, but because I've talked to digital folks, artists, who I will ask well, what's your ideal scenario? And it used to be that they would say, we don't want anything practical because then we have to match that. Mm-hmm. And matching a real thing, fur texture, dripping water, that's difficult. Yeah. We can do it in our own way without being a slave to what you've done. And that allows us to move quicker and cheaper. So that sort of is like, okay, I see why that's another little cog in the wheel of why these things go digital. Like fans scratch their heads and go, but it looks fake. Why would you do that? Well, there's a whole bunch of economic reasons why. And the fear of spending them, buying it twice, replacing costs and last minute stuff, which never looks good. Digital artists aren't proud of that work when they're just like, here, replace everything.
Yeah.
At the last.
Rush it and all that.
Did they do that on that Sonic movie or something?
Yeah, they did. They tried.
Right?
Alvin and the Chipmunks was a famous one.
Oh my, yeah.
Alvin and the Chipmunks was famous for one of the producers. There's no reason to name names. But one of the studio execs was driving in like 3 weeks before the release of Alvin and the Chipmunks 2, and he looked up at a billboard that happened to be right there by the gate. And he gets on the phone. Is that what they look like?
Oh my gosh.
And they're like, yeah, we've been working on this, submitting stuff. Well, you got to change them. That looks, what? Who? Right?
Stop.
So in a matter of I might have this time frame wrong, but in a matter of 3 weeks, they had to basically redo. They could use their core animation, but they had to reskin these characters to suit this guy who just happened to look up as he was driving into the studio.
Who didn't care enough beforehand.
Right?
He was busy. He had a J-Lo movie he was producing.
Oh no!
Yeah. So, well, that could probably occupy a lot of time. I mean, honestly. But yeah. So that's a place where my heart bleeds for the digital artists because they literally are up against. I'm not really up against a release date. I'm up against a start shoot date. Right. But I'm not up against a release date, and that's why when you see a lot of trailers for movies. And you go this looks like crap. Look at the digital. It's because those aren't finished shots. That's what they have. But that's another thing why I like this time that we're in right now is that studios do realize now, if you get it in camera, you have something for your trailer. Yes. Right. And it looks cool. Mm-hmm. And it looks like it's a finished thing. Even if it isn't, even if you're going to tweak it more, it's more of it. Like Phil Tippett, the great Phil Tippett, who stop motion animator and director, and he's a very experienced dude. I worked with him on Starship Troopers. That was all his fantastic digital work, which still holds up to this day. I still point to that as one of the best examples. Jurassic Park and that.
And you were Oscar nominated for that?
Oscar losing.
Okay.
That was Titanic. Titanic sunk us.
Sorry, like what are you
The
gonna do?
Yeah, what are you gonna do? What are you gonna do? But what Phil said was digital is seductive because it gets you 80% of the way there really quick. You can look at like blockouts and wireframes and go like, oh, look at the animations. But then the last 20% is a dire slog that you have to go through to get it to look photographically real. And that it's in that 20% missing that they have to release trailers. So they might be something that's still 10% of the way, which is really significant.
Right.
You know, but yeah.
What was, I mean, if you're down to speak about this a bit, that change from, I mean, you do Aliens, James Cameron, I imagine it probably went somewhat smoothly or very smoothly. Go to Aliens 3 a few years later, David Fincher, first feature out, I think. And, you know, you mentioned before with another, like, scripts changing along the way. And from what I remember, Alien 3 pretty famously had a lot of changes as it was being made. I mean, how did that impact your work on it? And were you guys constantly having to just, I guess, adapt, like, day to day to that? Or was everything already prepped by the time they started?
Well, that's an interesting one because I'm always kind of, like, taken aback when I read things about like the problem plague, what a disaster, all that. I was like, didn't seem that bad. Like I think this is a little bit of this is like the press wanting to sell, you know, whatever their product. Yes, there was script rewrites. They shut down production for I think 2 months.
Okay.
And we didn't twiddle our thumbs, but we just put a lot more work into dumb stuff that we knew would never show, you know. But we had to do something. And the time that we were down during that 2 months, we really didn't have a final design for the dog alien. Fincher was working with H.R. Giger on that stuff.
Oh.
And we didn't, we were trying things like, you know, whippets. That was during that period, you know. We were just kind of aimless going, why not?
Cut in and put the dog running right here.
Yes, please.
We'll do.
By the way, you're welcome to use anything off of my YouTube channel, too. It's all our stuff. I don't have clips from the films. It's all stuff we shot. So you could steal anything off of that.
Thank you. Matt, we got the permission on camera.
Oh, yeah. And if Fox, you have a problem. Cheers, Fox. If you have a problem, Rudy Ruiz.
Yeah, that's me.
Ruiz, that's your man. Look at the shirt he's wearing. I don't even know if that might be bootleg.
We're gonna have to blur it out.
Yeah. Well, your beard's pretty much doing that for us.
We got it.
Yeah. No, but we did have some stops and starts. But the main thing was that I really wished we'd had an alien design that we could have been working on. Because once we started up again, that part of it came together and we could start building the actual alien. So for all the time we were there, we spent a relatively little amount of time building the actual xenomorph.
Gotcha.
But there were sets that were built that kind of like, you know, I think some of them got scrapped. Norman Reynolds, who was the production designer on Star Wars, the original 3 Star Wars movies, genius guy, awesome dude. He had built like these giant, beautiful sets, absolutely gorgeous. Jordan Cronenweth was the cinematographer. Originally. Blade Runner?
Blade Runner cinematographer?
Yes. And that guy, genius guy, he had health problems. And his son was kind of his right-hand guy.
Yeah.
And Jordan, I don't know exactly. I'd be speaking out of turn as to say why he left the production, but he was replaced with Alex Thompson, who was also a genius, who did I Am Legend, and Alex Thompson also shot Leviathan that I worked on. So we had a relationship with Alex. He was a great guy. But it was all like top quality, and nobody was running around panicked. Nobody was like, you know, it wasn't. Fincher was not happy. I did overhear some phone calls. You know,
was he just as demanding and everything then as he is now? He's
great.
Yeah.
He's really like I don't know what kind of reputation he has now, but he's great. He's so first of all, he knows camera.
Yeah.
He knows camera, and he knows how to, you know, he's just really like out of the gate fully formed filmmaker.
Yeah.
He has a very interesting story too about how he was discovered. I don't know if we should go into that or not.
I mean, I'm down.
Yeah.
You guys can cut this up if you want. So what Fincher lived in the Bay Area, right, near ILM. And he was, like, when he was in high school, he was, like, messing around with cameras. And he's a genius. So what messing around with cameras is, he took a 35 millimeter still camera, took it apart, and basically turned it into a frame-by-frame movie camera, attached like a magazine to it, right, that could hold like a big reel of film. And he was walking through the streets of San Francisco going click, click, on an intervalometer or something, the right exposure and all that. And he entered that film into a film contest. And it was like impossibly zooming through San Francisco. And everybody's like, how the hell did you do this, right? Because he was 17. And he's like, and so he gets a call from ILM, who are working on the speeder bike chase. And they're trying to crack this nut. I guess they had done something similar on Temple of Doom, where they needed a small camera, so they stripped down a still camera and turned it into a movie camera.
So they're on the mine carts.
Yeah. So someone was at the... got wind of this little award-winning film at the library or whatever it was, and all these details are wrong, but they called him from ILM and they said, "This is your cease and desist call. You must stop doing what you're doing because we are working on some proprietary, and it's for George Lucasfilm." And so, also preternaturally, frickin' ballsy, David Fincher. I don't even know if both of them had dropped, but he says to them, "I'm not going to stop. No, there's nothing you can't make me stop. Who are you again? I can do whatever the fuck I want." And like, so then he gets a call back from Dennis Muren, and Dennis Muren is like the legendary guy who's done all this fantastic work. And Dennis Muren, I think, is probably like less of a he's less business affairs and more like, he's like, how are you doing what you're doing? What's
because he's like OG of ILM, right? Like top, like
OG,
original,
he's in Raiders of the Lost Ark too. He's like a guy on the plane who's like following Indy, and he lowers his glasses.
Oh my gosh!
But Fincher had a conversation with him. And Fincher said, like, instead of strong arming me, why don't you hire me? And he was like, good idea. So Fincher went to work for ILM. And Fincher worked at ILM when he was a teenager. In fact, David Fincher was one of the puppeteers of the Rancor monster in the whatever the number 2 or whatever the movie was.
Return of the
Wow. And Fincher's big break then into music videos was he did they had to do a PSA, like, they're like, we'll do like pro bono public service announcement commercials, an anti-smoking campaign. So Fincher pitched an idea that he thought was hilarious, that it would be like a little baby in the womb, like in the camera. Oh my God! And the baby, when you smoke, your baby smokes, and the baby lifts a cigarette and takes a drag. and Fincher thought, this will never fly, and Fincher's like, how did the kid get a cigarette up there? How do you light a cigarette up there? That's what's going on in his mind. And they're like, hey, yours was picked. So like he got to make the thing, and then everybody was like shocked and blown away. And typical David Fincher, who's like, all right, him and emotion. I think he has a very interesting relationship with emotions, because he's so sardonic, right? And that's that. When you know that, like, that's why Fight Club to me is a perfect film for him, because it's his sense of humor and it's very sardonic, and the stuff that we're like, he's like, pretty funny, huh? Like, yeah. So that got him directing music videos, and I don't know what his history in music videos, but like, he did Madonna stuff, and then so he was like on the list of young directors that they wanted to work with, and I think Alien was a good fit for him, but it was that script of Alien 3 was kind of had already been through the Vincent Ward phase. And we were talking to Vincent Ward. He was on as the director of it, and who's a New Zealand director, who directed, I've laid off this for a few minutes. It was a movie about time traveling monks. So he was very interested. It was good. Vincent Ward's a great filmmaker, but he was very interested in kind of medieval concepts.
Okay.
And so he wanted a planet of medieval monks that was similar to what they ended up with,
like the prison idea.
But guys who were abstinent and all that kind of stuff, but had a code.
Yeah.
And were all shaved heads. And so there was stuff to translate it. But I think what they did for Alien 3 was they had a sci-fi prison movie, and they had this sci-fi monk movie, and they kind of mashed up the two. And that was always like, how do we, what is this recipe? And they were working hard to do it. And considering, like, I know back in the day when Alien 3 came out and Fincher was getting kind of a lot of crap for like, all the people who don't know. That movie is as good as it is because of David Fincher, not in spite of him. It's because of it, but it just wasn't of a whole cloth his.
Yeah.
So I think he was like he was doing battle with the studio, and that's never.
Yeah. Any other random person could have just gotten chewed up and spit out at that point, but clearly he's had a very great career since then.
And he is like a calm, methodical, and I think that's what was frustrating to the studios. You can't rattle the guy. In my experience, I even cut my finger wide open with his knife in his office, and he just looked at me and said, "You look pale." And then they had to take me to the hospital. But
oh my God.
See this? Here. Can
Why?
you see this?
Yeah. Wow.
So I can't straighten this out. I can kind of like, but Fincher had this knife that he would play with in the office, and he would like, just to creep you out while he was talking about mundane thing, he was like run it under his eye. I'm like, what are you doing? Give me that. Like this was the first director that I worked with that was younger than me.
Okay.
Right? So like
my God,
he's 27 and I'm 30, and I'm like, give me that little.
This isn't for kids.
This is not for children, yeah. And so I took it, and it was a folding knife.
Oh my God.
So I was playing with it, of course, because you give a guy a knife.
Yeah.
And so I was just like, we were talking, and then like, all right, we're done with this conversation. Very good. And I go to stab it into the wall, which is covered with corkboard. Except it wasn't corkboard. It was hard-pressed English. I don't know what English materials are.
Oh my God.
It looked like cork, but it was like hard as steel. Yeah. So it folded on me and sliced right into my finger, and it just went blood. And I instinctively put my finger on that, and my tongue felt the severity of the wound, and I started to go loopy. And then they took me to a place where they stitched it up, and I don't know. That's the
gosh.
That's the result. So, but David Fincher never was. He looked at me and he just said, "You look pale. You're gray."
Yeah.
And I was like, "Don't you have any emo?" He wasn't by my bedside when I came to. Let me put it that way. No, but he's super funny. He's great. I mean, some of his great lines were to the British crew. Oh my God, this guy, because they're very hierarchical over there.
Yeah.
More so in that era. Mm-hmm. And he's like a 27-year-old. That's unheard of. You would have to be deep into your 50s even to be a department head in that place. And he would say things like, they would say, "David, your problem is you don't like people." And he said, "I love people. They stack so nicely."
Oh my gosh.
There was this, I had sent you this video clip from YouTube. I don't remember why or how I came across it, but it's him behind the scenes of Alien 3. And there's one point where he's like talking shit on Fox, and he grabs the memory and he
I love that.
And he's like, "You hear that, Fox? A bunch of idiots," or whatever he says.
The one thing I remember him saying to God, I came around the corner to go into his office, and it's like dead of winter, snowing at Pinewood Studios. His office his big picture window office was the same office Gale Ann Hurd had on Aliens, whatever it was, 5 or 6 years prior. So it's kind of like, oh, I know this place.
Yeah.
And there's David on the phone with his feet up on the desk, like who's the guy that painted Nighthawks, that artist? The guy, the people in the, it's like noir,
Right.
He's like all comfortable in this glowing, warm office. And there's 3 Fox execs outside in the snow smoking. And I come around the corner and they didn't see me. And they're like, what are we going to do? He's just not listening. Everything we do. They're just like in a total state of like, because this 27-year-old is running rings around him. And I'm like, oh, man. And they go, oh, hello. And they wait for me. And they go back. And then I walk in and I'm like, I walk into his office and he looks totally relaxed. But he's going, take my fucking name off this picture and put me on a plane right now. And he said, you've asked me to paint a masterpiece, and all we're doing is we're finger painting with our own shit on the wall. And he hangs up the phone. And I'm like, this is like alarming, right?
Yeah.
And I'm like, and he goes, hey, dude. And I said, oh, who is that? He goes, whoever, the head of the studio. He goes, what do you have? And because I wanted to show him drawings of what we were working on. And like, that's how he was. He was just compartmentalized. Like, I got this fight over here, but he's still fully dedicated to this, to doing it his way. And, so he's an amazing person,
He seems like he probably has a similar mindset to James Cameron, I would guess. Like, as far as directing, when you're on set doing the thing, is the approach somewhat similar, or are they quite different?
Both are very self-confident and very secure in their abilities. Fincher's style is less in your face. He will shame you more than he will yell at you.
Okay.
So like I remember once we were setting up for the death of names. Mezcal. The only name I can remember is Mezcal, right? So it's the death of Dr. Mezcal. We'll call him that. Played by the guy from Game of Thrones.
Charles Dance.
Charles Dance. What was his character's name?
I don't remember.
Anyway, Dr. Mezcal. We were setting up, we have a fake head of him, right? And we have like Tom Woodruff. I mentioned Tom Woodruff, my business partner from Amalgamated Dynamics, who I went through all these adventures with. There, make sure you leave that in.
Right.
Tom played the alien in the movie. So he's wearing the gloves and he's holding the head of Charles Dance, right? Yeah, like this. And it's all rigged. It's got blood. It's got a canister in it. We have our pneumatic alien head that fires the tongue out, right? So it's all this and it's all been aligned and set up. We spent a few hours setting this stuff up. We got it all ready to go. And it fires off of a trip switch. And what's cool is the trip switch, when the tongue gets out to just breaking the skin, that fires the air canister that blows the brains out. So it's all like, you can't miss.
Yeah.
All you have to do is align it. I don't know what happened, but when we get Fincher over there and he's like watching and go, watch this, right? It's a big test for you. Real blood, all that stuff, right? And it hits here, and then it goes,
Oh, God, no.
and he goes, if you're trying to impress me, you're failing. And he turns and walks away. But it was great because he was like, we were like contemporaries. It wasn't like, it was a kind of an adventure, It was like his first movie. We've done the drill. He trusts us.
Yeah.
I know he trusts us.
Yeah.
I can then go, but he's good. He's very personable and he's very charming. But so is Cameron. Cameron is very funny and very witty. Cameron can be a little more rough-edged, but I learned. Well, I had worked with Jim because Cameron was someone that I met when I was about 18 years old. Yeah. I met him through a high school art teacher. My wife had a high school art teacher.
So random.
I know, isn't that crazy?
So wild.
And her husband taught oceanography classes at Cal State Fullerton. And her husband had this student named Jim Bob. That's his real name. No, I'm kidding. Named Jim Cameron. And he had made this film that was called Xenogenesis, a short film. And so it was like, hey, Alec makes monsters, and this guy does stuff like that. You guys should be. So I called him, and I'm like, yeah, this is what I do, you know. And he said, you should come to see a screening. We're going to screen this short film, Xenogenesis, that we just finished. I go, okay. I drove out from Santa Ana to Pomona at midnight, where his buddy was a projectionist. So after the theater closed down, because of course he shot it on 35 millimeter because, you know.
Damn.
Yeah, if he could have gotten his hands on a 70 millimeter, he would have. So we watched this, and I was like, holy shit, this is like this is awesome. It had stop motion, and it had concepts in it. You can see it online if you go to YouTube. I think there's a really super low-res crap copy of it. Somebody should put a really good quality.
But you can see like the basis of what he would do next.
You can see a robot in it that looks just like the
exoskeleton,
the robot,
the hunter killer thing.
Yes.
Yeah.
Was the hunter killer the flying one?
Oh, maybe.
It's the treaded one.
Yeah.
It's a treaded one. And there's a woman inside a robot, and as she makes these movements, the robot walks.
No
right?
way.
So it's pre-power loader.
Yeah.
And he's another genius.
Yeah.
God damn these guys. Really makes you feel like shit. Like if people like they go like, you're so lucky. You happen to like fall in with James. Well, he wasn't James Cameron then. And really, if you meet people like this, it's like Amadeus, right? You like have to give your ego a little bit of, you have to process this like, oh, I'm not there yet, right? But I could be. And so, you know, use the exposure to this kind of thing to your advantage. But I got
the short film.
The short film
screening it.
And so like it was just an amazing film. And then when I had a connection to Roger Corman's through my sister, she was acting at Cal State L.A. And there was a guy named Walt Dodge who was a carpenter on a movie called Battle Beyond the Stars in 1979. So he came to my mom's house, you know, and I was like, you know, I had taken over the 2-car garage, and it was a monster factory, and I was doing stop motion animation and all that. And he was like, oh my God, you got to like come for a job interview at Roger Corman's. And I was like, okay, but I didn't have a portfolio, you know, like, what does that look like? What's
How
a
old
portfolio?
were you now at this time?
About 18, 19.
Okay.
And you knew at that point, you knew who Roger Corman was and his body of work? And
I knew enough to know that he had done Death Race 2000.
Yeah.
Like Roger.
That movie's so much fun.
Yeah.
That's a wild
Eat My
one.
Dust that Ron Howard directed. I mean, because he was like Coppola, Jack Nicholson on
Scorsese,
Little Shop of Horrors, and all those guys, right?
Yeah.
So I got an interview with that guy, and then I got very nervous. And I started putting my portfolio together, but I thought, maybe I could bring Cameron along, right? Like we both are itching to get into the movie business. He wants, right? He's got like giant paintings and a script. He's got Xenogenesis. He's got. I'll ride on his coattails. And so we did do that and went in for the interview, and it all went well. We met with a guy named Chuck Comiskey, who's a great guy who was the visual effects supervisor on Battle Beyond the Stars. He's done a ton of stuff after that. And the Skotak brothers, who I mentioned, who are the tabletop geniuses. And everything went very well, but we didn't get hired for like 9 months or something. So I'm like, I'm aging out. I'm 20. No. The pressure is not just on actresses, dear.
I know, right? 20-year-old.
It's Hollywood in general.
Hollywood, baby. That's showbiz.
Yeah. I did get a little nip tuck before the
You look fantastic.
But we didn't get hired, so I went to work as a noon duty school supervisor. Like I had a job at a Tustin High, just making sure kids didn't leave campus and stuff. And that's what I was like, fuck, man, I don't know. I just felt
what am I going to do now? I feel rejected.
Yeah.
They don't want me.
I'll just read science fiction books at lunchtime. So then we get the call, and we're like, hey, we want to hire you guys. And so we went and started working on Battle Beyond the Stars. I found the earliest pay stub that I could possibly find was from November 1979. So that's fucking crazy, right? I think in November. No, I had just turned 20. So Yeah, so I was doing that, and then I was so I worked on Battle Beyond the Stars for about 9 months, and worked with Cameron, and we were kind of like, you know, he would start, he you know, he's a brilliant guy, right? So like, hey, there's a spaceship that needs to be designed. We were just started off building miniatures.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then spaceship needs to be designed. Let's everybody submit your design. So I did a design, and other people do a design, and we're like, everybody puts their designs up, and then Cameron puts his up, and you go, what the fuck? It was the spaceship with the boobs. Do you remember that? It's got
oh my gosh.
It's got like these side pods, and it's a woman's body.
Yeah.
Kind of turned sideways. And
I haven't
and it's like
seen this
an erotic
movie, is it in like another, because I feel like I've seen
it's
that
in everything.
image. Yeah,
because Roger Corman takes all his footage and he releases it to every other thing. Okay. But we're all looking at it like, what the? And it was kind of Giger inspired, you know, a little bit. But like, and with Cameron, like he'll design a spaceship and you go like, does it fly that way? No, it flies that way. Whatever it is, it flies the other way you think it flies.
Right. Yeah.
And you're like, oh my God, that's fucking great. It had garter belts. It had a garter belt.
Stop.
It's on my Instagram because we refurbished it recently, which was, anyway, so he and I, so of course, it's like, that's too compelling. This is a Roger Corman movie, which is a TNA, right? I mean, Sybil Danning was in the movie, trying her best to compete with that spaceship. She did a good job.
Who won though?
Yeah, I don't know. You have to ask the fans. Take a poll.
Who won?
But so we were building the spaceship together, and then he would sort of like start a project, and then he would climb the next rung, and I would finish the project, and then I would join him on the next rung, which would be they gave him his own camera unit. So we were doing effect shots, right? And then I would jump in on that. And it was like he and I were both stretching our limits.
I was going to say, because you're brand new to like all of this, right? So,
right. But the thing with the movie, with that particular movie on Roger Corman's, is that it was sort of comprised, the personnel was comprised of like semi-professionals or people on the cusp or older people who were sort of like on the way out or, you know, whatever.
Got it. Okay.
So it was a really comfortable place to be learning.
Yeah.
And everybody, we all thought of ourselves as outsiders. Like we looked at what was going on in the Star Wars movies or Blade Runner. Yeah. And we were just like drooling at having those resources. Our stuff was like, you just pull shit out of the garbage and make things.
No, AIP was like punk rock, man. Like,
That's what this was. This was like countercultural. We had to figure out ways of doing, which is the legendary stuff with, you know, where Cameron was designing sets and stuff that were like fast food containers, hot glued to walls and painted over. We did all that kind of stuff too, because, you know, and Cameron ultimately became the art director of the production designer of Battle Beyond the Stars, and then he would, you know, like, okay, I need all these people from the model shop to come over and detail and build this stuff. So it was like an unbelievable film school for me. Like I was loading 35 millimeter cameras and doing motion control stuff, you know, with rudimentary motion control, but it was still like doing it, building models, sculpting landscapes, going over, you know, we need you for 3 days over on live action, building the sets and painting and all the while I'm thinking, because I had applied to USC Film School. Okay. I got accepted to the art school, but not the film school. And I kept thinking, I have to go to film school. And Cameron kept saying, I don't think film school's what you need. And I'm like,
you're like, look what you're doing. Yeah, you're doing it, baby.
Yeah. And I'm like, okay, we'll see who gets further along. So I did go to UCLA, and I would like go to school for a quarter and then work for a quarter. I'd go back and forth. And then I dropped out because I came to realize, oh, this is actual.
Yeah.
In the trenches.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Did Gaolan Hurd come from like the school of Corman too in that era?
She was with Corman. Yeah, she was with Corman. She was around. She didn't work on Battle Beyond the Stars, but there was a movie called Humanoids of the Deep that she did some production title on, and they were shooting pickups next to us. That was Rob Bottin did the creatures for that.
I didn't know that he was in the Corman.
He was. He had done like Rock and Roll High with the Ramones.
That's right. Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
So he was already a legend by the time I started. Rob Bottin, like I knew of Rob Bottin. He did a movie called, he was a protege of Rick Baker's. And then he did The Howling. And then that guy, like I can say, yes, I started working at 20. That guy at like 21 was building amazing shit. He did The Thing when he was 23.
Yeah.
Had a nervous breakdown, I understand.
I would too. He had like 33 people under him. And insane. And you're 23 and everything's like on.
I mean, there's nobody like, well, Fincher, this is what always amazed me, right? Like I always like, my heart went out to Rob Bottin because I know plus the experimental nature of that and the bar he was setting, what he was claiming he could do, which he did do. But that guy.
Is that like, so I'm super into The Thing, so I'm a big, Rob Bottin fan, but is that why, like we were talking about this a little bit on the way here, is because it seems like he kind of disappeared a little bit after that era, you know what I mean? I mean, maybe there's some stuff.
The very last thing I'm aware of him doing was a Joe Pytka commercial, maybe in the early 2000s or 2005. You could do some searching and find it. They have some like background footage. He did a likeness makeup making someone look like Mona Lisa and Leonardo da Vinci. Beautiful makeups. He did Amazing Stories stuff in the late 80s.
That was the Spielberg one, right?
The Greeble.
Okay.
And he did Deep Rising, Treat Williams.
Okay. Yeah.
He did stuff for that. But the hands-on stuff, I believe, was in the early 2000s. And then I don't know. We have mutual friends. I have had interchanges with Rob, exchanges, and the guy's he's one of the all-timers, obviously. I mean, that guy's career is like, he is a unique dude with a unique sensibility and a groundbreaking. And all the while I was at Stan Winston's, which would have been when he was probably doing Explorers and Legend, all that, RoboCop.
Yeah.
We were doing Predator, Terminator. I didn't work on Terminator, but that was and Aliens, right? So we were like on the rise.
Yeah.
And every time I'd look at what Bottin was doing, we would all just get so much inspiration from him and his team's work. And it was all in such secrecy, like who I know one person, two people who worked for that guy at that time.
We talked about
nobody
that
was
too.
talking. Yeah. Nobody was talking. We're like, what the? But what you would hear would be the crazy stories about his eccentricities. So there was a mystique built around that guy, like Orson Welles.
Yeah.
And then he did. I believe that he left on his terms. And there's a rumor that like, oh yeah, he's a real estate agent. And I'm like, get out of here. Rob Bottin is not a real estate agent. But I looked it up, and there is a Rob Bottin who's a real estate agent. But it's not him. I don't think it's him.
Somebody probably just Googled, what is Rob Bottin doing now? It's like real estate. And they're like, oh my gosh.
But I do believe that what he's done is, I do believe that he has taken his the money he made in movies, and I believe that he owns real estate holdings. And I think that's part of why he's like,
there's that. Yeah.
What do I need this for? Like, because he's correct. Like the era I'm of a different sort of era than him, even though we are about the same age. I am of a different era because my career took off later than his. And my era is more of that sort of like, I'm part of a team that is supporting the director and blah, blah, blah. He is like, he's like the guy with the vision. And if you want his work, you are buying his style, his, all
and you're going to do what he wants, kind of thing.
I don't know that for sure, but when I think of his work, I say like Rick Baker, Stan Winston was a little more malleable. Stan Winston was interested in working with directors, but Stan was kind of like, he was a big personality. And so for me, I have generally like wanted to, because for me, part of why I do this is for the growth experience. And every director who comes to me has a point of view, and I just really dig it. I really feel like a lot of like Like if I look at David Bowie, I love David Bowie, right? David Bowie has reinvented himself a million times. His influences, you can see his influences, and he would go to bands like T-Rex and go, what are you guys doing? You know?
Yeah.
And to the point where I've heard that people would be like, oh no, here comes David Bowie. He's gonna dissect our shit. You know? But really to me what it is it's more like you want to be influenced by super creative people who will influence and improve you. Boots Riley, right? Like Boots Riley's work on Sorry to Bother You and I'm a Virgo. Mm-hmm. That guy thinks in a way that I do not at all. And I'm really interested in helping him bring that out. And if I can, fit some of my sensibilities into it, then that's great, I don't want to be like pushed around by someone who makes me do low-end work, because that's like I will turn down jobs. A lot of comedies, that go like, it doesn't have to look good. Part of the fun of this, if they start that, part of the fun of this is that the creatures are going to look badly made. And then I go, I can't do that.
That's not going to go on my resume.
I can't. But I will refer them to people because I think everybody, that might work. I don't know. It might be cool.
Were you on Piranha 2, The Spawning?
No, but I loved my favorite thing. Bottin worked on that, right? Oh no, that was no, sorry, he was on Piranha 1.
That was
the Cameron
first
one.
Feature.
No, I wasn't, but that was post Roger Corman, right? For Cameron, and that's where he teamed up with Lance Henriksen.
Oh, I thought that was part of the Corman AIP thing. Okay.
No, I think it was an Italian producer, wasn't it? There's the whole legendary stories of like them locking Cameron out of the editing room. I think it was not in the union. So they were like locking it direct, and he cut the fucking lock off and got in there and fucking started it the moment, because that's Cameron. Yeah. He's a force of nature.
I mean, I imagine that experience in the school of Corman, probably made you a really good problem solver. And I mean,
well, it's a crucible.
I imagine you got the whole experience that make you strong in the rest of your career.
Yeah. It is a crucible. In the way that TV, like if you're a director and you're a TV, I love working with TV directors and people who have like a ton of low budget credits, because that they understand efficiency and they're already come with, they don't have naive preconceptions about the amount of control they're going to have or what the possibilities are, right? Like I think a problematic combination is a first-time director who maybe comes from writing or who's an actor or who has no experience, and they have a kind of a idealized view of what it's like to be a director, and it's based on impressions that they get by watching people on TV or maybe shadowing a director or something like that. But it isn't like, you have to understand that you have to work within parameters, because it is a product. And if you have 12 days to shoot something, you're not Stanley Kubrick. Right. Stanley Kubrick may have done that early in his career, but you cannot. This is not your playground now. Yeah. Work your way into that, and then you'll have by the time you get that experience, you'll have a more informed point of view. I don't know. I have seen people like Fincher might say something totally different, because Fincher's been very good at demanding a certain level and getting it. Yeah. And being ready to walk if he doesn't get it. But he has a kind of real understanding of the real world also. Yeah. And Sion Chafin is his producer, and she's a dynamite human being. They both are, and they both work so well together. And they, But yes, I think that I really value my low budget experience, and I love low budget movies. I love the risk taking. It's exhilarating, and it's like you fly or you fail. And what is failure in our business? What is it really? It's like people go meh or whatever. Big deal.
Or it's made, it's gone. It's like, okay, well, on to the next one. What are you going to do?
Yeah. On to the next one. Roger Corman's movies, a lot of them are crap. They're not all, but there's something about them, right? And also the cumulative body of work and the opportunities that he gave people are like, there was a time where he was not so revered.
Right. I just noticed you have a sculpture of the new Predator design from Prey over here in this room. I'll get a shot of it. I talked about it on the podcast recently. Great movie. But it's pretty like saturated and colorful, and that got me thinking, how closely are you working with production design and the cinematographers to, decide on like what the color palette is based on, I guess, okay, it's saturated here, but in the movie, when we're talking about the look and the color grade, whatever, it's going to be, we're in this dark, woodsy, burnt down kind of forest. So how are we trying to boost these colors up or keep them more subdued? And that's just one example, but
that's a very good question, because you see that and you're like, wow, look at all that. Yeah. Right? Jeff Cutter shot that, and he's awesome. Jeff is really great. He's a very quiet and methodical guy. So it was conversations with him. But it isn't, like, we tend to get more test time with makeup characters than we do with animatronic characters. And I think it's because it relates to the actors, because actors wear these things, and many times it's actor-centric. Everybody, production's all over it, right? Like, oh, good, But if it's just me and, my crew sending them video, they'll, also, that movie was during COVID. So there were restrictions on that the studio was imposing on, like my crew's all in there, we're masked up, but we're all working in the building. And when they would visit, when Dan Trachtenberg and we haven't even talked about Dan Trachtenberg. I love that guy. And Jeff Cutter and they would come over to look at what we were doing. They had to stand out in the alley, and we had to bring things to them.
Oh my God! Stop.
To them. Yeah. So they did a great job with that. But my philosophy always is I know what's going to go on in the color grade. Not specifically, but I know generally that they're going to crush the blacks. We're going to end up with, it's going to be a little desaturated. So therefore, I'm going to pump up the color.
Okay.
So I really, because this guy is an alien, I didn't want to just like make him like, boring two-tone paint job. So I was trying to work a lot. I had more colorful stuff in his chest too, like blues and weird stuff to just say like he's an alien.
Yeah,
he's not an earthbound thing, which did not end up being in the film. But I pump it up more so that there's somewhere to go.
Just
but the conversations aren't all that specific. Like I'll ask a DP, like, what's your plan? We did this movie called Werewolves, which is the Frank Grillo versus Frank Grillo with a minigun.
Seems on brand.
Oh yeah, it's perfect. It is. I think you guys will really enjoy this movie. It's really fun. But Brian Cox is the DP on that. He's an awesome guy, and Stephen Miller is the director of that. And speaking of Stephen Miller has done a ton of movies. He started off doing skateboard documentaries shooting from the hip. And Stephen Miller's style reminds me of Cameron's, which is, very confident director, like, get that werewolf over here, and you like get the thing. And it's like, he'll say like, you got an angle on this? What do you like? Chin down, like I want the eyes up, chin down. If you can get a little bit of a soft light over here, we have reflective eyes. Okay, get that shit, go, let's go. And then and it's like,
let's go, because
it's not a big budget movie. You can't luxuriate in chin scratching and all that. And that is exhilarating to me, right? It's not the only way to do it, but it's one of them. So Brian Cox, who's the DP, Brian Cox? No. Brian Cox, that's the actor. B. Cox. Brandon Cox. I love the guy because he makes magic out of very little. He would just take magnetic LED, like in the sets we had, like LED powered lights, magnetic and you could like tune them on your phone, change the color temperature, and get it all set up. And I'm like, where's the rest of the lights? He goes, this is it. I'm looking at the monitor going, this is fucking fantastic. But he came over while we were building the wolves, and he's like, I'm going to be like, it's going to be backlit. We're going to have a lot of shadows, a lot of creepy darkness. I'm like, right on. I got it, you know. And then you have to be prepared on set to make adjustments.
Right.
And in Prey, it was a little more difficult because those are daytime and nighttime.
Yeah, right.
And the only unexpected thing on Prey for me was we kept sliming you slime the guy up because he's sort of amphibious.
Yeah.
And we would slime him up, and it just didn't seem to read in the monitor. And I went to Jeff, and I'm like, how come we're not getting like specular highlights? He goes, oh, well, because, look, we're looking out into a valley of broad daylight. Yeah. I have a polarizing filter on.
Oh, okay.
And the polarizing filter, I have to adjust that background, otherwise it's blown out.
Yeah.
So it was like, oh, I see. Okay, like we are not going to get the super shiny look here outdoors. So if you look at the movie, at nighttime he's very slimy looking in it because that's like more single source.
Yeah.
And in the daytime he's a little more reptilian looking, which is oh well.
I like that though, because they're on the jungle, bright colors, dangerous. It's like
part of the environment. He doesn't stand out as like a salamander in a hot, And these are the things I think that practical work give you. That if you were to pre-plan it and this was a digital character, he would be all glistening and shiny and all that, because that's what your mind tells you it should be. But if reality tells you otherwise,
it doesn't. Yeah.
Sir Ridley Scott told me that. Always go with reality; she'll never let you down. And I think that's pretty true. And also the gifts that you get from your medium, right? Like if it's a physical, practical medium, it gives you something back that I don't think happens in digital, because you have all options are yours. So like, fate, nature, God, universe is giving you nothing in digital. It's all a construct. But like even like sculpting in clay, like there's a water-based clay that I like, which is it's called web clay. It was developed by Walter Elias Disney Company for their theme parks because they were doing such big sculptures. And it's water-based, but it has glycerin in it, so it doesn't dry out so quickly. So you can sculpt big things. But it is so soft and buttery that you smack it on, and it leaves this. Once you start smoothing it with your hands, it leaves this substrate of what looks like subsurface form and texture that you're not controlling. You're just like pounding it on, and you can polish it out and make it like the side of a oil tanker, or you can leave it lumpy and then continue your work on top of it, and that's a material that's giving something back to you.
Yeah, it's all about that in front of camera.
Yeah, whatever's going to make it look real and alive.
Yeah. And something for, actors and environment to play
with. I think about acting a lot with that. Like, I thought about that on Romulus. Like, on Romulus, I was part of an ensemble. And normally when I have done an alien movie, it's like me, I'm the guy that's building every single creature. But Fede Alvarez, who is a huge practical effects fan and a huge aliens fan, wanted to assemble a dream team of practical effects artists. So that's why I'm on it. And Shane Mahan, who was one of my brothers in arms at Stan Winston, him and Lindsay McGowan, we were all three on Aliens. And then they got Weta Workshop, who's done amazing practical stuff over the years. So the three companies did it. And at first it's like, wait, what? And then I realized, oh no, this is an ensemble cast. And how great is that? We feed off each other. And then we just, like, once you let that go, you let your ego go, and then we're all on set together, and it's just like, this is a blast.
Before. Yeah. It's like, oh my gosh. And that, I think, is like so cool, because you've come up together with so many people, and you guys are just like, look what we did. Yeah. Like, look how we've affected, pop culture. It's still important. It's insane. Yeah.
It is crazy to me to think about, because like I said, I haven't been thinking about it until relatively recently, within the last 10 or 13 years, about the impact and how fortunate I am to have started when I started, and the ongoing impact. And like, because literally in 2011, I was thinking, oh, we're like a thing of the past. Like, people just aren't interested. Yeah. And then that's what the foundation of our YouTube channel was stuff that never made it to the screen, that people have a deep appreciation for. And I'm grateful for all of that. So, Yeah.
Do you feel that it's harder to get into, not just the industry in general, but into your field of work now than it was back then, or is it kind of the same?
Well, it's interesting. It's a trade-off. When I started, there was less opportunity, but also less competition.
Right.
Yeah.
There was less information, so you had to do your homework, and you had to really dig, and you had to be insanely dedicated to this weird, stupid thing. And now there is so much. There's tutorials about anything. You can do it. It's been democratized, which is a good thing, I think, because the work is so much better now. Like I look through Instagram at work that amateurs are doing. Cosplayers are doing amazing shit that was 15 years ago would have been professional quality or what have you. So the level of the craft is really skyrocketing. Opportunities, I think, are more because of gaming than when there was no gaming when I was around, and gaming is a bigger industry than movies is. The opportunities are there for digital artists and practical artists still. Well, let's see. What's exploded for practical artists is haunted houses, cosplay. You look at apparently the Universal Horror Nights.
Yeah.
The time that operates for the month or 2 months, whatever it is, makes more money than the year-round tour does.
Oh, I believe it.
It is insane, and that's why they're expanding it now. They're we're going to do Tim Burton Christmas or whatever they're going to do, right?
Yeah.
Good for them. But it is and that employs tons of people.
Yeah.
I know a guy, Pat McGee, who's a super talented guy who does movies, but what he mainly does is the horror night stuff, and he does a bang-up job with it all. And he brings in, for me, I keep, where's the next group of people? Where's the new Roger Corman?
Right.
I had Roger Corman. Where is that? And it could be horror nights. It could be some other things. Although Roger Corman is unparalleled for experience in both building and filmmaking, because I learned a lot about who we were making films. That was the end result.
That's a lot of movies too. That's a lot of work, decades of just grinding it out. But I don't know. But it's a weird time. Not to end on a downer note, but it's a weird time because we have AI, which is starting.
Yeah.
We have a bottoming. The business is bottoming out. They're fleeing Los Angeles.
Yeah.
Even so, they're so desperate to get out of Los Angeles that they will spend $8 billion on a studio in Vegas. Right?
I heard, yeah.
Over 17 years. I don't know. Anyway, it's a weird time, and I don't know exactly what the future holds. I didn't know what the future held for me when I started. Yeah. There was a juice of energy with Star Wars, which was out a couple of years before I got into the professional world. So I don't know, but people romanticize the '80s, and young people now go, "You're so lucky." There's it didn't feel like it at the time. I mean, I ate frozen peas for dinner for a lot of the time.
Yeah. And we know you just had Alien Romulus. We got Smile 2 coming. I mean, before we wrap up, what do we got to look forward to?
We also have Werewolves.
Yes.
Originally titled Year 2, but that was, marketing.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
We don't know what Year 2 means. Is that a baby movie? Let's call it Werewolves.
Yeah. I'm that's the one. That's the one.
That's the one. It needs an exclamation point at the end, I think, just to really make it. And an upside down one at the beginning.
Yeah.
And then we got it. So those are the ones that are coming out. I have some other things. I don't know what I'm, you mentioned Smile 2. I don't know what I can talk about. It honestly, let's see, again, don't be a downer, Alec. This is what happens when I have a couple of drinks.
I know, we're going to be like, this city.
Keep it real.
Keep it real.
The real is good.
For the young actors out here, directors, keep it real for us. Let us know.
Every freelance creative field is like acting, right? But I have a special appreciation for actors because I got them in my family.
I know.
And they work so freaking hard.
Yeah.
And it is such an anxiety producing. But the crazy thing is that it can be an evolutionary process. It's one that requires you to. It's a snake swallowing its tail because it requires you to be self-involved, right? Yes. And it requires you to think about what you're doing and think about the future all the time and yet you have to be in the moment. So you have to do all those things, and you have to ply your craft in the most intimate and honest and self-bearing way, but you also have to be a shameless self-promoter.
Yeah. Yeah.
And this is what the freelance lifestyle is. If you're a graphic and a visual artist, you have to be authentic. You have to pour yourself into your work. Unless you're a commercial artist, then you can, and I'm primarily a commercial artist, so I can always sort of like stand behind the work, as opposed to be the work.
Yeah.
And you have to be the work. And as actors, you walk in the room and people start judging you.
Yeah, and they're like, no, not you. And I'm like, not me.
Not you. It's like speed dating or something. It's like, I'll just leave.
Right? It's like, it's okay, never mind.
And then you have to walk away without it affecting you. And
have a great day.
Have a great day.
And go work that sucky ass job. You got to go work right after.
But don't get negative. Don't start blaming them.
You can't.
But don't blame yourself either.
Exactly.
What can you blame? We need to have something to blame.
Tequila. I'm just kidding.
Oh, tequila. You're pointing at him or the tequila?
No.
Blame the tequila.
It's Rudy and the tequila.
Well, that's the other thing is, right? Like no wonder creative people fall into self-destructive habits because it's like, does the world love me or does the world not love me?
It's tough. And like I was telling Rudy, because, we do our shorts, we write, we pitch, but I'm like, it takes over 10 years to become an overnight success.
It does. There's no such fucking thing. And if
there is,
it doesn't last. I'm going to try the sherry.
That's good.
Try the sherry.
I'm going to top it off, and we're going to see what happens when I mix.
I love it. I'm like, so for the young filmmakers out there and the young actors, who's going to be like, get out of Los Angeles.
Yeah, no. Well, with my daughters, and two of them are actors.
Yes.
What I always said to them was like, don't go into it lightly, like be sure. And I tried never to pull punches because my work is similar, but I believe it's a harder, the acting as a task, as a livelihood is a less likely thing even than what I did. I mean, I could say like, well, there are only a handful of people who do what I do at the level that I do it at. But there's a lot of support people. You have a lot of, and you could say, well, then I'm like the star, right? I'm like a star.
Yeah.
And then there's lots of supporting
your managers
roles.
And your assistants.
But what happens, of course, is the market forces that actors and artists don't think about. Like, why do movies leave Los Angeles? Why do I not get a movie? And because it goes to Central Europe, where there are tax incentives, and there's lots of talent. Right, so they'll hire an artist or an actor from me or you from Europe, from England or from Europe, and they'll do a fine job because there's lots of talent all over the world. They will do a fine job. So how do you justify that, and how do you bring that into your existence and your life without beating yourself up, without fretting constantly, And I always say to people, not always, but lately. Oh, I thought you were. There's a macho kind of idea. There's lots of memes out there that tell you how uncompromising you must be. But my experience is that you better be ready to compromise.
Right.
You and like this whole plan B. Don't have a plan B. Arnold said it famously. I listened to Arnold, when I was young. Don't have a plan B because you will take it. And I'm like, well, isn't that what a plan B is for? So how about this? How about not a plan B, not an escape route that you have because you don't have conviction? Or how about a stream of income that can sustain you so that you can stay in the game and ply your craft and get better and maybe get the break you're looking for or what have you? I'm not I don't want to emphasize big breaks because as you said, 10 years and you're an overnight success. It's a plodding, methodical road that when you look back on it, it's methodical. When you look at it, when you're doing it, it feels scattershot.
Yeah.
But then you connect the dots in your mind in your own way, as if you planned the whole thing.
Right.
But acting is that's why people say, you're an actor, you've done stuff. I have acted, but I am not an actor because I don't put the work into that I know that you do. Are you an actor also?
No.
No, I only do commercial acting.
Okay, so good.
I'm mostly writer. So
okay, great.
Write horror, and Rudy has begun to direct all my horror.
Excellent.
Which is amazing.
So what a team. So
yeah.
that's like some people will go like, well, what about acting? Like, because they expect like if you act, you also must be bitten by the acting bug, and that it has to be your life's, you are consumed by it. But you're not. You have other aspects of your personality that you can open up and you can explore, Mm-hmm. I mean, if you got a gig and you got cast on something and they're paying you $14,000 a week,
love it.
Great. That's what I am now.
Put my all in there. But, until then, there's so many other things. And I think that like making films and making movies, I love movies so much. I love creatures. I love everything about it, and I want to be a part of, that world. Mm-hmm. And I love creating, and we just started writing, and I love horror movies, obviously.
Yeah.
First horror movie I watched when I was a child was Child's Play.
Oh, yeah, my buddy Kevin Yeager.
Yeah, terrified me.
Yes.
And I remember that feeling, and I love that feeling. Everybody's like, you like being scared? I'm like, you know what? When you're scared and like something like scares you, but then you come back to you're like, everything else is pretty good. Like, I'm not getting chased by a killer doll. There's not an alien bursting out of my chest. I have nothing to complain about.
It's a safe way to feel extreme emotions. It's like a roller coaster ride, right? Like, I'm about to die. I didn't die. But it's a cathartic thing. I would also say that it is preparation for the worst possible things in life, right?
Yeah.
Like it reminds you that shit's out there. Mm-hmm. And I've been in emergency situations where things have happened, and I feel like this feels familiar.
Yeah.
And it's because, I've seen it in movies, and I don't know. I don't want to overstate it, but I think there's validity to that.
I 100% agree.
How are you liking that, Sherry Cat?
This is really delicious. Yeah. I'm kind of wishing I'd have started. Can we just go back to the beginning?
Welcome to Drinks and Movie Podcast, guys.
How many episodes have you guys done?
It's a 2 over
Rudy's done this for a long time. I co-host with him when we do horror movies.
Yeah.
And when we do like fan favorites and anything like scary, spooky.
Yeah.
That's what I do, creature stuff.
Yeah,
awesome.
Pretty far in now.
I know. I told Rudy, I was like, oh my gosh, I met Alec Gillis. I'm so excited. I can't wait. I wanted to come on because obviously you do all these things that we love, and
see, that's
iconic.
That's the thing that's crazy to me is for people to go, oh my God, I know your work, and I don't know why is that crazy to me, because that's exactly how I felt about. There's a ton of people that feel that way about it.
Yeah, it's funny. If I never got into doing cameras, like I think and sometimes I still think, I was just telling her, I'm like,
say this too.
Every once in a while, like whenever we shoot our stuff, I'm like, man, this camera thing's not working out. Should I just like go in on this? Like, I think I could have easily, when I started, gone the route of like the makeup, special effects, and all that. Because I remember watching when I was a kid. I don't remember what channel it was on, but there was this show, I think it was called like Movie Magic or something. And I would always see like the Stan Winston stuff. And I was like really in the Tom Savini for a while.
Sure.
And like, and I used to shoot for the PPI booth in Monster Palooza when I was getting in the camera. Like I would go to both of them like twice a year for a few years. So I got to meet Dick Smith. Like I chatted with Greg Nicotero and Howard Berger and like
awesome.
All these like I would shoot like time lapses of Chris Nelson doing stuff like. So I was almost gonna ask that, like at this point, like someone who's a little bit older, that's like not a young up and comer, and I think we all know the answer to this.
34.
Right? 34, that's me. Yeah, like
I'm not saying my age on here. 25.
But I mean,
if you're a director, you can be honest about it.
That's true.
Yeah.
Not yet.
Not yet. I'm not comfortable with that yet.
Well, not yet.
But would it be really hard for somebody who's already, let's say, my age, if I did, if I was like, you know what, screw all this camera stuff. Let's go into this. You know,
here's what I like. The plan B thing. Like what is this? A monkey doesn't let go of a branch until it
grabs another one. It's called monkey branching, yeah.
Monkey branching.
They call that in relationships too. It is. Wow. Really? Okay. So in relationships, it's like, well, you don't break up to your person until you get into another one.
Okay.
TikTok stuff.
It's not a bad plan. I mean, it's not a bad plan, right? Like, and I say like, well, why? It's not like this work for me right now. I don't feel like it's a full-time job. It is a full-time job periodically, but like, I wish there was more work. It's not the 90s, basically. Yeah. I wish there was more work. So I don't believe that you would be making it in Los Angeles. Yeah. You wouldn't be paying your bills if you just said, I'm going to chuck it all. And because it's not like, there's companies out there that are just like ready to hire, because none of us are.
Yeah, I guess you're still in the same exact situation at this point.
Yeah, and you've invested a lot of time in this stuff too, which is that's a good investment.
Yeah,
but it doesn't mean that you couldn't like why don't you build stuff for the movies you guys are directing?
Yeah,
No,
we're thinking like the next thing we're gonna do. Yeah, I haven't told you this yet, but I want to do like a knife through the neck or so. I think we said that part, but I was like, I just want to do it myself.
Yeah,
like let's just do it ourselves. Yeah,
you should definitely do it.
And like you said, now we're in this era of
that's the thing.
Tutorials, and there's so much access to stuff, and light it the right way, keep it dark, make sure it looks legit.
Do you know a makeup effects artist named Gary Tunnicliffe?
No.
He's on the Stan Winston School. He's a British guy who's a friend of mine who is like. He's directed a bunch of movies. He did like the last Hellraiser movie, and he's directed a bunch of other. But he is so clever and so and his work is so straightforward and direct. But he does like tons of like sliced throats and knives, and it's all really high quality stuff. But if you peruse, look up Gary Tunnicliffe. He's really. I want to get him in. We go back a long ways, but I want to. There's a movie that I'm hoping to do that is taking its sweet time, but I'd love to get Gary because he's like got such a gore kind of sensibility to it. And I'm at an age now where I'm like, I don't need to be like so central to everything. I've already dressed the little dogs.
Yeah.
How'd that work out?
I mean, that was the highlight.
But you should do it. You should do your own stuff. It's very satisfying.
Yeah, it is. Nothing's better than like seeing it. When we went and we screened the short that we did, and we're just like, it's great. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
it's funny too. I feel like just getting older and having to worry about adult stuff. Like I'm trying to get back, and we've had this conversation of like getting back into that spirit of like, all right, when I bought my first camera at like 21, and I was learning how to edit and. That was at a time where I bought like a hose from Home Depot and fake blood and put it between someone's arm and like blew through it. I put a wig on a watermelon and smashed it with that. Yeah. Like, I was doing that shit. I somehow as you get older, at least for me, I feel like I kind of lost that edge. So we're working with our little shorts now to like, let's get that back.
Let's
like, what's that?
Be silly. Like
that feeling.
Well, also not to have a plan B to the plan B, but I have a relationship with Cinema Makeup School.
Yeah.
I'm on the board of directors.
Ooh, fancy.
Which basically means we do this once a month. And I give my thoughts, I pontificate. But I do have a good relationship with them, and I've hired some really good graduates who have become, working professionals. But they have a wing that wherein I'm referring them to for ultra low budget stuff, where their recent graduates are doing the work, and they're kind of also they have some professionals that kind of supervise this stuff.
Oh, nice.
But that's a possibility too if you guys need stuff for horror and these are people who are trying to build their resumes.
Of course, get their reels, have stuff to show. Mm-hmm. So it has to still be.
But I do encourage you to do your own stuff. It is fun.
Yeah.
It's so fun.
But I go through this all the time where I'm like, what, I have to remind myself, what did I get into this for, right? Like, because it's very different. My life and the way I work is very different than when I started out because I'm not as hands-on. And so I work with the people more than, I'll sketch and I'll, but I don't really have the time to get out there and do all this.
Right.
I say that, but I have nothing but time right now, and yet I don't pick up clay. I have a sculpture in my office that it's in progress, started during the lockdown, and it's not finished. And I just sort of remind myself that either I am still a sculptor or I used to be. I don't know. I don't know. I don't know anymore.
That makes me. Do you have a favorite among all the creatures?
Yeah.
Stuff that I've done?
Yeah. Is there one that you're like, yeah,
Like, this is, yes.
That's it, man.
It gets tied up in the experience of the movie also, right?
I like that. Yeah.
like Jumanji was one that it's not like I got to design like an alien, an iconic alien character.
Yeah.
But we got to do a whole bunch of things that were like exaggerations of real stuff. And it was so damn fun, and it was just such a fun. It was great. The movie was great, so I go to that. Pumpkinhead I like because that one has a little more of me in it.
Okay. Yeah.
Tremors has a lot of me in it. The Alien franchise, I've always felt like I'm a guest.
Okay.
I'm a caretaker. I'll bring my sensibilities to it.
Yeah.
But it was established in its best possible form by H.R. Giger.
Right.
Yeah.
So everything else is a variation of it that is to serve the director and the story.
Yeah.
And that's why I'm really excited when people say the Alien 3 Dog Alien is my second favorite Alien. Some people put it ahead of the first Alien, which I'm like, what?
It's me.
Yeah, what? Or that Predator, the Wolf Predator. There are people who no one will say they like that better than the Predator, but they'll say it's second favorite Predator. And then people love Prey.
Yes, that
They
movie.
love Prey, but I think they're a little freaked out by his face.
What was the thought?
Why'd you do
To
that?
redesign it. No, I'm curious.
Well,
just to keep it fresh.
Yeah, I believe in that a franchise needs to deliver what the original did. Like you can't turn it into something that it's not.
Right.
But if you're delivering what the original did, what the original gave us was a freaky face. When that mask came off and you saw that face, fresh, right? New.
Yeah.
We know that face really well. It's been done a million times. It's in across the mediums of video games and comic books and all that. We're familiar with that face. We love that face. Yes. It's a regal face. It's cool, right? It is the original. But if you want to kind of recreate the moment that you had when you were a kid and you saw that face, if you see the same face, you're not recreating that moment. So this is what, with Dan Trachtenberg, what we discussed a lot was, what do we give the audience, how do we make it terrifying again? How do we make it weird, freaky? And Dan's idea was that he wanted it to be a horror character.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He really wanted this to be more like a indigenous native horror film. That this character could be a Wendigo, or it could be a native spirit. She interprets it that way. She sees the spaceship crashing. She's actually excited. Amber Midthunder did a great job of that moment where she's like, I saw a Thunderbird.
Yeah.
And it's a religious experience for her.
Yeah.
And then it goes bad, right? It's a demonic character in the woods coming out, unstoppable. So how do we make that feel like it could be integrated into the land and the culture, and also give it a face that is maybe a little different? Yeah. And you push the envelope, right? And you go I don't know, this might be too far. But when you have a director who's willing to go too far, that's pretty freaking exciting. I almost didn't get the job. Tom and I almost didn't get the job on that because Dan was concerned that we had been involved in so many of the traditional Predators that we would not be willing to veer off. And I had to go, let me show you all the stuff that's been rejected. Yeah. And it really comes from the studio. The studio tends to play it safe.
Yeah, right.
Gotta look like the,
Yeah.
So he had because this was a Hulu movie, I think, didn't get a theatrical. I think it really, also COVID. COVID meant that they weren't coming onto the set. They were asking for updates and stuff, but you weren't swarmed with studio execs. So he was able to take some chances, and we were game for it. And, you take a risk. The newborn from Alien Resurrection was a big risk also.
Oh, yeah.
Jean-Pierre Jeunet was like, no, I must have this, and this. I'm like, really? You know?
I remember you said initially, are you still not able to talk about Romulus at all?
Oh, no, I can talk.
Okay.
Yeah.
I can talk. Yeah.
Because I think it's interesting that you were involved in both kind of renditions of that. Because they...
The baby.
Spoiler alert. There's a spoiler at the beginning of this. I'll say it again right now.
I can't show pictures of it.
Okay.
But yeah, interesting that they did the same kind of similar approach, like the human hybrid thing. And now, man, I think I like the resurrection one a lot by comparison.
So it's a statement, not a question.
No, I'm just.
Well, how did I feel about
I drank a lot too.
Yeah, you held it together for a long time. Now you have glowing cheeks and a big smile.
Everything we.
You know what's good? Yeah. You guys are good drunks.
Yeah.
That's the key.
Because you imagine I break down, I start crying. I'm like, you guys,
it'll eventually
so
happen.
So these alien babies.
Alien babies. I like that she starts telling the truth the more she drinks. The alien baby. Yes. So my feeling about it is it's one of the freaking creepiest things ever put on film.
That
like the shot of it just.
When he turns around and it cuts to it, that whole theater, that was the moment.
Everybody,
that was
you're like,
out.
Right?
That was the uncomfortable.
Yes,
we all felt that.
And then did you guys understand that he was breastfeeding? Was that clear?
No, I thought he was sucking her blood or something.
No, he was.
It's a new boy. Of course, we should have got.
He was breastfeeding black goo out of her mammaries. Isn't that twisted?
That is twisted.
And I think there was debate at the studio level about what do you want to do? You when you hire these directors, Fede does not. He's a brilliant horror director, and he's going to want to go there, right?
Oh yeah.
So
he's 3 for 3 as far as I'm concerned.
He's amazing.
Yeah,
he's amazing, and he is. I love all these different personalities of directors and the way they work. He's very. Quietly determined. Unlike Cameron will go, and Fincher, in my experience, toe-to-toe with the studios. Fede is more subtle. Fede will, work it, more. He's a musician. He's you didn't think that guy was romantic looking enough.
Oh my gosh.
So cool.
I'm like,
Bella has such a crush on him.
It all makes sense now.
Bella was on set in Budapest, and she was like, oh my God, I have such a crush. He walked us all around the sets and all that stuff. And then you're like, oh, there he is playing flamenco guitar.
Wow. Directing these blockbuster movies. Yeah. Beautiful man.
So, anyway, needless to say, did it get hot in here? Anyway, but he is, I think he is sort of more of that, he's Aikido as opposed to karate. You know?
Yeah.
So he is a very, why was I saying this? Because he gets what he wants through his ability to deliver on other things, right? We built miniatures for his movie, Pro Machina, my other company, right? That's run by my daughter and my son-in-law. And that sounds like nepotism, but she has been producing miniature effects for 2-time Oscar winner Ian Hunter for 7 years. So
you're lucky to have her.
So I'm lucky to have her. And what I thought was, if I'm going to commit to this vast cavernous workspace, I want to have another income stream. Yeah. Plan B?
Yeah,
miniatures. But it goes back to my Corman days, right? I want to have everything under one roof. I would ideally like to be making more movies, in-house movies, and have the ability to shoot here or nearby in a warehouse, build everything, just do everything, soup to nuts, as the old folks say. So we built miniatures for 2 miniatures for Romulus, and they were scanned by ILM and used to create their digital models. But there are also about maybe 9 or 12 shots of the miniatures in the film, and that's because of the dedication of Fede Alvarez. Fede said, I am going to have... Alien had them, aliens had them. I want miniatures in my movie. And if you look at the movie as it is, even the digital stuff looks like real miniatures. Yeah. It looks like when they push into the cockpit and you're like, I'm looking at it going, is that our ship? I don't know.
No.
There's never a moment where I'm like, oh, that's miniature. It's just all perfectly blended in.
They were like 9 foot long miniatures, 6 and 9 foot long
That's
miniatures.
so crazy. That attention to detail is incredible.
Yeah. And so that's Fede. He had to finagle to get the shots, but it was a pickup day where they had to get some like extra shots. This is totally James Cameron would do this, right? Like Cameron is known to like plow his money, his own personal money back into things because he wants it. And if the studio says, no, you can't do it, well, why? Well, it's not in the budget. Okay, fuck the budget. It's my money now. And this is what I think a real filmmaker does.
Yeah.
They make sure that what they want gets in there even at the cost, Yeah. So anyway, there are shots and in the movie with real miniatures, and we're very proud to have contributed to that. And Fede is the man. I'll be at the this will probably come out after I'm in Italy. I'm going to Italy for the View conference, which is the 25th year. I've never heard of it before, but I'm like, you'll fly me? You'll fly me?
Yeah.
You'll put me up? In Turin, Italy?
I mean, come on.
Living the dream.
Right?
Living the dream. You want to hear my joke? I don't know if I'll try it out on you, see if it's going to work. Because I have to speak. But what I thought I was saying was like, my cheap spray at the hotel in Turin. My cheap spray tan came off on the sheets, and now the housekeeping staff thinks there's a second shroud.
What?
I'm not cultured enough for that.
The Shroud of Turin?
Yeah.
They'll get it because they're from Turin.
They got it. I think you're good.
No. I'll try it anyway.
Right,
How bad? It's just a joke.
It. Let us know how it goes.
I will.
Send it to
Somebody will video it.
They'll cut that, and then the dog running down the hallway.
Yeah, they'll be like, never invite this guy again. Everything is a failure. Fail cute.
Oh, we love it.
Fail cute.
I don't know. This is how they usually go. They just sort of break apart and turn into a fractured.
Sometimes, yeah.
And then you have a big editing job.
I do have a lot of editing ahead of me, yeah.
Can I tell you my thoughts on AI?
Yes, please.
Okay, so I think that I'm not as scared by AI as other people are. Copyright issues aside, which it seems to me like AI is doing what the human brain does. AI scours the internet for pictures and all that kind of stuff, and people call it the greatest art theft ever, and they might be right. However, I think it's kind of what I do, right? It's kind of what anybody does. You catalog all this cool shit. It goes into your brain, you reprocess it out, and it influences you. Mm-hmm. So is the influence a copyright violation, or is it inspiration? I don't know. I mean, like I look at, if you say in the style of H.R. Giger, it comes out a certain way. We've seen that in tons of individual artists doing that as well. So I'm not really sure about that argument, but I'm sympathetic to human artists more than AI. But I also think that AI is not going to replace the experiential aspect of creating art. And like you guys here have a podcast asking me questions about what it was like, right? What was it like? What was David Fincher like? What are the personalities like? What are the hardships? AI will give you none of that. Right. You'll be saying, what prompts did you use? And that's the end of the conversation. Yeah. If you think that CGI is a little bit soulless and the process of CGI is a little bit technical and like how many times can I look at a person sitting in front of a monitor with toys of cooler shit up on their, if you think that's boring, AI is going to be super boring.
Yeah.
It may be really good when you hide it, if writers use it as an assist or a prompting, and which I don't even think I object to that, right? Like for me, if I could work with someone who's like,
like this this is what oh my gosh, thank you so much.
There are writers like that, right? Who have that ability. I prefer to work with a human being because you can drink with them.
Exactly.
But I feel like what's going to be missing is all of the experiential stuff after the fact. And like you can watch it and go, yeah, okay, it's a little bit like by the numbers. It's like a Hallmark movie. Not to say that Hallmark movies don't have their place. Now I just dissed my friend Jenna Brister, who is a Hallmark writer, and she's brilliant, and she does like amazing stuff.
You're brilliant.
And she's trying to bring more nuance to Hallmark movies, but they're a little bit like an alien.
Listen though, the Hallmark movies have that that fandom because they're Hallmark movies.
Yes.
You know what? It is what it is. It's a market. It's a great market. If it wasn't, there wouldn't be a million Hallmark movies every year that people are sitting there just like, this is amazing. That's
right. What do you want Hallmark to be? Quentin Tarantino's Hallmark movie?
Listen, I mean, I'm not going to lie. I did write something like that.
What? A Tarantino Hallmark movie?
I'll tell you about it later.
Okay. Well, you have way more control than I do in speaking.
The AI thing I agree with in terms of like sparking something in you to help you get to a place. But I think that there's a lot of people, especially coming up, just my opinion, that are, I think, undisciplined for that.
Oh, yeah.
Like, Photoshop now has the feature where it's like, I can take a picture of Carissa right here. And all right, there's cameras and cases and a light right there. But I can just drag it over and it'll recreate what it believes the rest of this room to be. And there's stuff like that, which is cool. But then at the end of the day, when the person relies on that, it's like, well, but you didn't do it though. Like you still took the picture with the camera back there. Like you didn't think to frame it a certain way. Like I had a friend that he called me a fool for not using, because I started playing with doing bottle product photography, and he was like, hey, I got inspired by what you did. I did my own little version of it, and I was like, yeah, this looks really great. This is cool. But then I found out later, because he posted about it, that, he lit the bottle and he took a picture of the bottle, but it was just like this, just bullshit around it. And AI, Photoshop, recreated everything around it, the background and little fruits in front and all this stuff. And I'm like, but you didn't do that. Right. Yeah, you got the bottle.
So let me ask you, though. If he said, I didn't, does that change anything for you?
Oh, man, that's a really good question. A little bit, because I appreciate that there's an acknowledgement, but then I guess if he were to go and use that to like make money for himself, I mean, I appreciate. So what if he said,
what if like, I'm just trying to figure out like what are the terms, right?
That's true.
So if you put something out there that you have used AI as a crutch or an assistant or whatever, and if you say this was done by me and Midjourney, does that make it okay?
Yeah, shit.
I mean, guess,
sometimes where's the line drawn?
There should be like maybe a disclaimer.
Like, don't be inauthentic.
Yeah,
don't
just
bullshit
be like,
us.
look what I did with this program.
Because I feel like when AI proliferates, it will increase the value of total human analog created stuff that did take discipline, right?
Yeah.
Like that isn't a slick. It'll be like photography versus impressionism. And you'll go like, there's a human being behind that, as opposed to it's a little sterile. It's cool, right? Like it looks cool, it's fun. But that's what I'm wondering.
Yeah.
There's a do you guys know Chris Cunningham?
Chris Cunningham.
He did Aphex Twin, Come to Daddy.
Yeah. Rubber Johnny. Yeah.
Rubber Johnny. So he was on that trilogy CD of Michelle Gondry, Spike Jones,
the music videos.
Chris Cunningham is a genius, visual genius, and he worked for me on Alien 3. He was a 19-year-old kid, and he was a sculptor and a mechanical. He was like a creature kid, right? And he was referred to me by Steve Norrington, who was before he directed Blade. Steve Norrington. So by Alien 3 crew was like an amazing. There's so many Oscars came out of that crew, but Chris Cunningham, who has done like amazing. You should watch his videos. You'll be blown away. I mean, fuck me. And if you haven't seen Rubber Johnny, that shit was creepy. I was pretty young. So creepy.
We all thought it was real. We all thought it was real.
Oh, it looks so real.
I'm gonna have to write all. Okay.
You gotta watch it.
Well, and he did like the PlayStation commercials and stuff too for like a time.
Yeah. So we had a conversation about AI, And I said, like, I find it very compelling. People say it's soulless, but I do feel like it's very compelling. And it's creating some weird, because of the anomalies of AI, like multiple fingers and weird, like it creates like nightmarish. It can't help but be nightmarish.
Uncanny valley, like messed up. Weird.
All the melted cheese stuff. Have you seen this? Eggs and cheese.
No.
There's all these, my algorithm. It's always like some guy going and turning into a monster, and then melted cheese comes out of his mouth, and then his eyes turn into raw eggs and drip out like, you people are on acid. And it's so nightmarish, the stuff that's being done. I'll send you
Oh my
stuff.
gosh, please do.
It was only,
we have to follow each other because I have to send you this shit.
It was only like a year or two ago and it's crazy how far it's advanced already, where 1 or 2 years ago they did the AI made that pizza commercial. That was kind of like you said, crazy fingers and like chewing the pizza.
Will Smith eating spaghetti.
Yeah.
Did you see that?
It was like that. It was like that.
Oh dear, how do you miss this?
Oh my gosh, what am I missing? This AI universe.
It's insane. It's nightmarish and insane. So but what Chris said, I said like, I have to be careful how I use it. I don't want to like displace artists. He's like, what? And I'm like, well, I have a shop full of people, right? Like I don't want to like do them wrong. But he's a lone artist, so he's like, he said, his philosophy is that production illustrators, production designers have been trapped in this Marvel, Star Wars, all-encompassing universe for decades. And they have gotten boring. And everything is predictable, nothing is fresh, nothing is new. AI is showing him something new, freaky, inspiring. He said, if those people got off their asses and did what AI is doing, I would sympathize. And I said, yeah, but like they're paying their bills, right? Like these are brands. You're talking about brands that work within. He's like, well, I'm not concerned with that. I'm concerned with inspiration, his own personal inspiration. He's an artist. Yeah. I'm a commercial artist. And so I thought that's very interesting. He's like, and so he's using it, and he's like, and when I think of it, I think AI in the hands of the guy that did Rubber Johnny, is going to be fucking great. Yeah. Like, would you deny him that? Like, no, dude, you can't use it.
No, because it's like, all right, you have a proven like track. Like, we know you can create some crazy shit. So I would be interested. Like, Chris Cunningham's going to come up with a DVD of him doing AI shit. Yeah, I'm going to buy that Blu-ray. But because like the name, he's already done it, you know. So there's I guess for me there's a spot that's
the pedigree. He's like, it's like Picasso using AI.
You earned it to this point, but that is interesting. Yeah, like where's the line drawn? And I guess when I think about if someone did acknowledge that they used it. I mean, I don't know. It's like to what degree, but I guess that's all the stuff we're going to find out, right?
I mean, I feel like the perfect example would be, this is going to sound kind of weird, like a girl working out and she has a great body because she works out. Or a girl getting a BBL and being like, look how hard I worked out. And it's like, bitch, we know you didn't.
It's easy, right.
You know?
It's easy.
So I feel like it would just be one of those things.
It's like boob jobs, right?
Yeah.
Like boob jobs, there's an appreciation for natural and for boob jobs.
Exactly.
And people go like, that's valid and that's valid. So I don't know if like, do you pick one over?
Touche. Okay.
Why do you pick one over the other?
Are you an ass guy or a boob guy? I guess.
Well,
you know what I mean?
Or even of the fake butts and it's like what is the?
You know what? It's because you cannot grow boobs, but you can grow your butt. So you maybe cannot learn this, but you can learn how to photograph. You can learn how to photograph that bottle if you put the time into it.
I think, all right.
Right.
So I think we're getting off.
Right. But what you're getting at is that putting the effort into it, and I agree with you. Effort and time is more valuable than taking advantage of a process some other smarter people came up with.
Yes.
Right? Yeah.
Yes. And then does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely.
Was that a good?
That's a really good
analogy.
See, it's a good thing you're here because dudes will just talk about like a narrow plane.
I know. I'm like, listen, guys, you got to think outside of the box.
Isn't it crazy? It's crazy that it took a woman to come up with the butt and the ass.
No, everybody understands.
Yeah,
everybody gets it. You're like,
why didn't we come up with that? This is the problem. We've been nerds too long.
That's it.
I know. I'm like, well.
You're like, yeah.
I love it.
But content is still king, right?
Content
the person still matters.
That's true.
I don't care how great that ass or that chest is. You've got to still be. I mean, maybe that's just
in the real world,
be cool.
In the real world. But if you're talking about
just
graphic images, right? If you're just talking, because that's all AI does. I don't know that AI. God, everything's sticking.
Yeah, my shirt.
Everything's
what's going on here? What am I exuding? Yeah, in the real world. But if you're talking about just like imagery, and that's the thing is that AI,
the imagery.
Don't know without a human guide. I hope AI cannot create moving, emotional imagery without a human guide.
Well, because that entire deepfake stuff too. It's just like, where do you guys say, okay, we're not going to do that because too many people are going to be swayed in a weird way, or you know, you never know.
Oh, it's already happening, isn't it?
Right? Didn't some weird?
I saw Donald Trump and Kamala Harris making out on Instagram.
Oh my gosh, I saw that too.
Right?
Yes, that one I did see.
And luckily, it's so outrageous that
nobody would believe it. But if it was something less outrageous, they could convince you that your husband cheated on you with this random chick, and now you know, you never know.
Well, it's crazy how, again, we mentioned earlier, like when it comes to visual effects, and now it's like people can do things on their laptops with After Effects. When you brought up how Fincher did his little short and got into, you know, ILM through that reminded me of the person, like, I don't know if you guys watched The Mandalorian, but they did the Luke Skywalker thing, and it didn't look that great. It was all right. But then for the next season, they hired some young dude that just did a better version at home.
You mean technically he was the artist who did it?
Yeah. At least that's what I.
Oh, interesting.
I remember hearing they found someone who did a deepfake that was a better version, and they brought that person on to do it. So in the next season, they recreated Luke Skywalker and it looked way better.
Yeah. See, they fired the big expensive effects company. This is what I mean about how like everything is so democratized that, and I think it's cool because you can have somebody in some far-flung country that is doing stuff that's just amazing that ILM is not doing or that I'm not doing, you know? One thing I want to be doing is peeing.
Yeah.
Yes.
So if you'll excuse me, we went, 3 hours?
Yes.
That's a record.
I know, that's insane.
That's a wrap. Let's sign out of this because I'm about to run out of media.
we got to do a
This was great. Hold on. I got to...
Yeah, let me do a little...
This was fantastic.
You guys have to drive, you weirdos.
I'm not driving.
So you've got, but you also have to load up your equipment.
Yeah.
Yes.
If you're expecting my help, you're sadly mistaken. Cheers.
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 To the
Drinks in a Movie
podcast.
Yeah, thank you
Cheers
so much.
to you folks, too.
Cheers. Iconic.
All right.
That was fun.
That was iconic.
That was fun. You were great on camera.
Oh, I've been doing it a while.
Yeah.
I was on the Oprah show.
Really?
Hilarious. If you want to include that,
I gotta find that.
We're gonna,
You're jumping on the couches and grabbing her and shit.
Yeah, I'm in love. Was that Oprah? Was that him?
That was him on the couch.
I recently watched that video of random. I don't know why. I'm gonna look this up and God, it's hilarious.
What a performance!
It's crazy. You got your.
That's why we love it.
Thank you for listening to the Drinks in a Movie podcast. You can now find us on Instagram at Drinks in a Movie Pod, where we'll be posting photos from all the various films that we discuss. You can also email us at drinksinamoviepod@gmail.com. Please rate, review, and subscribe, and thank you for listening.